Welcome back to the Terra Talk. Today's episode is for all the women out there who feel frustrated by endless cardio sessions, confusing fitness advice, and a seemingly lack of progress in their workouts. If you ever wondered why your body isn't changing the way you want, or if you're feeling a little lost when it comes to strength training, then this episode is for you. I am so excited to have Dr. Shannon, fitness expert, founder of Evlo Fitness, and former physical therapist who helps us address all these concerns. She's going to break down some common misconceptions around fat loss and body composition and explain why more muscle, not more cardio, is the game changer for a leaner physique. We'll also dive into why so many women get discouraged when they feel puffier after strength training and how to move past that discomfort, plus some underrated strategies for achieving true body composition. Dr. Shannon also has incredible insights on the transformative health benefits of muscle, from metabolic health to hormonal balance, that go far beyond aesthetics. If you're ready to rethink your fitness approach and get results that last, this episode is packed with the knowledge and strategies you need. So let's dive into it.
Hey talkers, are you ready for a boost with your fitness journey? Use code TerraTalk to save 20% off your first order of Legion, aka your new best friend for high quality supplements. Now, why is Legion the best? Because whether you're aiming to feel stronger, more energized, or just a little more badass every day, Legion's got you. Their products nourish your body and enhance your performance without any unnecessary fillers or fluff, and it's backed by real deal scientific research. Plus, they taste so good, you'll actually look forward to chugging down your protein shake. I know I do. And they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. What's not to love about that? So, what are you waiting for? Embrace the journey to becoming the best version of yourself with Legion Athletics by your side. Head over to their website now and use code TerraTalk for 20% off your first order and double loyalty cashback on every order after. Your support through Legion helps keep the podcast as a free source of content, so your support really does matter. So head on over to Legion and enjoy the rest of the show.
First of all, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Okay. We've got some rapid fire questions to start with. So First question is, what is your biggest fitness pet peeve in the industry right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
It changes all the time. I think one of the things that I'm seeing a lot is like the sculpting, toning, snatching thing. I'll go on your Explore page. It's a scary place.
I know.
And so I think that's one of the things that drives me crazy. Is like, do this workout and it'll sculpt you in 6 weeks, or it'll tone you or snatch you in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think what people don't understand is exercise changes the shape of your body in that you can add muscle.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always like spot treat fat or decrease your fat content.
Yeah.
In the way that people think, at least in that short period of a time. That's mostly nutrition. So I think that's the thing that is still driving me a little nutty right now.
Can we just talk about the word snatch, by the way? Like from a fitness background, a snatch is like it's a power movement. It's from the ground. It's a barbell, dumbbell, kettlebell. And I hear all these women all the time be like, I just want my waist to be snatched. And I'm like, what does that even mean?
I know.
Where did that come from?
It basically just means like thin, I guess, or like small.
Yeah.
Like, I guess.
Do you think it means small, or is it just like the small waist and then like this hourglass? I don't know.
What does it actually mean? I think
you.
It means I think it means the hourglass.
So like on that same note, what do you feel like is the biggest like load of shit? Like that you see more in the nutrition side.
On the nutrition side?
Yeah.
Well, I always say, like, I'm not formally trained in nutrition, so I try to leave it to the experts, the registered dietitians and all those things.
Yeah.
But I do, so what is a load of shit on the nutrition side of things?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think I'm like, I don't pay as much attention to that because I'm like, I leave that to the experts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
what do you think?
I think it's the don't eat this or only eat this, or this is the only way, or this is the diet that you should follow. It's everyone that comes online that's like, do this, don't do this. That is what I can't stand.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like it would be sustainable for most, because everyone's preferences are so different.
So different. Their bodies are different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Internal chemistry is different. Like,
yeah. But yeah, on the nutrition side, I totally agree with you. I'm not really on the nutrition side either, so I like to take it from the basis. So what do you feel like is actually worth the hype then?
I mean, strength training is having a moment, and I am so happy about that.
Yeah.
I think that strength training used to seem so one-dimensional to women. They used to think that it had to look like super heavy barbells in the gym next to a man grunting, and that's fine. That's great too.
Yeah.
And that it would result in this huge muscular physique.
Right.
And now what I think we're realizing is that there's shades of gray where you can lift weights in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And you can build muscle slowly. Most of us build muscle pretty slowly, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're going to turn into a bodybuilder overnight. So I think that people are waking up to that and seeing that it's not so one-dimensional. It's not just the bodybuilders that we picture in the gym, these like manly men. You're not going to turn into a man by lifting weights. So that has been so refreshing to see more people coming around to that.
Do you feel like it is just a trend? Like, do you think it'll actually go away and we'll lean into something else?
I've been thinking about that a lot. That's a really good question. I think that unfortunately what we've seen in the fitness industry is everything goes through a cycle.
Yeah.
And at first, we can go back to like the 80s when like Jane Fonda type movements. That's like modern day like bar or like some Pilates methods or whatever. Right. And that's circling back and having a comeback. Or we see like aerobics, and aerobic exercise was popular like in the 80s. And we're seeing a comeback of aerobic exercise just repackaged as zone 2 training. Right. So I think everything has a cycle in the fitness industry. My hope is that people are starting to wake up to the idea that muscle is extremely important for your longevity. And I don't think that's going to go anywhere. So my hope is that people are just like people know that cardio is important for your cardiovascular health, they're going to be like, oh yeah, muscle health is also important. And hopefully it just becomes like a staple in everybody's routine. Yeah. But I do worry that it'll be cyclical like everything else. What do you think?
Same. I totally agree. I'm just like, oh my God, it's so awesome right now. Women are taking up space and lifting heavy and feeling so confident, and it's showing up. But I am like super worried that it's going to like kind of cycle through other things, and it's just going to get to this place where it kind of maybe thin is in again. And I'm like, no, don't go there. So I mean, I think the more we talk about it and the more we get our clients on board, like the more it'll trickle down and create this really cool pyramid effect, right?
Yeah, I think so too. And I think there's a lot more awareness about, women going through menopause.
Yes.
There is so much more awareness and education around menopause now, which makes me, as someone in their 30s who hasn't gone through menopause yet, but it's in my next, 20 years, I'm thinking about that. I'm like, okay, how can I prepare my body now for that chapter of my life?
Yeah.
And part of that is building muscle and having a strong foundation so that when you get to those years, you're better prepared.
Yeah.
But the women 20 years ago didn't have the resources that we have now, and they didn't understand the importance of building muscle. They were on the treadmill all the time. Not that there's anything wrong with cardio, but they weren't focused on lifting and building muscle. And so now they're 20 years later, when they're going through menopause, they're having a hard time with it. So my hope is that we are seeing, okay, this is what our future holds. So how can we take a hold of this now? Mm-hmm. And I think we have so much more information, and a lot of I hope, and maybe it's just because it's the world that we're in.
Yeah.
But I feel like people are getting more educated about fitness.
I agree.
So I really hope that it stays around.
Yeah. Well, what is a piece of advice you would give to someone that's like going through perimenopause or into menopause?
Definitely. Oh gosh, it is such a noisy world, and it seems like a very scary world for them. Building muscle. I mean, that just seems to be one of the most important things for that age group as far as exercise, because you're losing it. We're losing it every decade after the age of 30, unless you're strength training and trying to build it. And that accelerates around that time of life because of the hormonal changes. So if you can get ahead of it and try to build muscle, you can help improve your metabolic health significantly.
Yeah, I love that. Do you hear that? Take up space, lift heavy shit. What about someone that's like wanting to get into strength training, hearing all of us talk about this, but is like super scared to just start? Like, what do they do? What would you tell them?
They're scared to start. I think, honestly, we think that we need to hit the ground running when it comes to fitness.
Yeah.
You've got the rest of your life to work out. There's no rush. And when we understand that building muscle, you got to be in it for the long game.
Yeah.
You're not going to build a significant amount of muscle in a couple months. It's going to, as you know, years of lifting and training and consistency. And so I think at first it's okay to lift a little lighter, get used to it. Have it be a routine in your life. Get used to what it feels like to pick something up. Get used to the movement patterns that you're going to perform. Before you think about, oh, I got to load this as heavy as possible today. It's like, just get the movement patterns down, make it a part of your lifestyle, and then you'll get hooked. And then you can start to like progress, add more, and training close to failure, all of those things. So just get started. It's okay if you're not lifting the heaviest weights possible right away.
What do you feel like is that hook moment where they're like, oh, I get it now?
Ooh.
Or what was yours? Did you have a moment like that?
Well, mine was, I always understood the importance of building muscle.
Yeah.
And I just was doing it all wrong.
Okay. What does that mean wrong?
So I was really when in physical therapy school, I was really learning about the benefits of building muscle.
Yeah.
Far beyond, or before it was like popular in media. I mean, people have been lifting weights for years.
Yeah.
Years and years and years. But I feel like a lot of women weren't lifting weights. Like I was always the only one in the weight room. And this was, 2015-ish? Mm-hmm. And so I would over-exercise. I would lift weights, but then I would go do like boot camp classes on top of that as like cardio, and then I would do like bar classes and then some yoga. And so I was just like doing a lot, kind of throwing everything into my routine and sometimes training twice a day. And so I had a lot of overuse issues, a lot of pain. I didn't actually have a lot of muscle because I wasn't fueling and eating properly.
Right.
And I was also over-exercising. So the switch for me was when I took everything out and I was like, I'm just going to focus on strength training, and I'm not going to focus on how many calories I'm burning. I'm not going to focus on getting as sweaty as possible. I'm not going to even focus on like how tired I am from the workout. I'm just going to lift. And I started seeing my body just felt better, like immediately almost. Yeah. And my back pain went away. My chronic hip pain went away. And this is pain that I had been going to a physical therapist. Not that I love physical therapy, obviously. I am a physical therapist. But I had been going to physical therapy every single week for years. And the back pain would just come back because I wasn't addressing it from the root. Yeah. So once I started feeling better, I was like, okay, this is it. And then from there, I had a whole body recomposition journey and all of that. But for me, it started with just feeling better.
Just feeling better. Mm-hmm. What was that shift, though, when you went from working out all that time to being like, okay, I need to try something different? Like, was there a certain moment that got you to that place?
Yes. So I moved from Kansas to North Carolina. And in that shift, I kind of had 2 weeks off where I was like not exercising. I didn't know, like I loved going to group fitness classes. So I didn't have my studio yet. I didn't have my workouts yet. And I was just getting moved and getting settled. So I wasn't exercising. And I was like, I feel so much better. Yeah. And I'm not exercising. This doesn't add up. Yeah. Like as a physical therapist, I know movement is so important. Why does my back feel so much better from not exercising? Right. And so I was like, it is from my workouts. My workouts were causing me all these issues. Yeah. Not that there was something wrong with me. It was that I was overdoing it. I wasn't doing the right things. I wasn't giving myself enough recovery. So that was kind of the switch for me.
Yes. I have a very similar story. I did a lot of HIITs. I was a group fitness instructor. I used to work out 1-2 times a day, 6-7 days a week. Like, what was that about us?
It's the group fitness. Yeah. Group fitness. I was a group fitness instructor as well. Yeah. So you would, I don't know if you can resonate with this. I would teach a class. And when I was teaching, I was doing the majority of the class. Yep. And then I would go do my own workout. Yep. And then sometimes I would be like, get inspired and take another class or something. Yeah. And that's like 3 hard workouts a day. Yeah. Like,
and then not to mention, I don't know about you, but I used to teach like 10, 12, 15 classes a week. So I was on my feet for like 12 hours a day and doing the 1 to 2 workouts myself. And like, it was insane.
It's too much. Yeah. And the group fitness instructors have it really hard.
They really do.
They really do. Yeah. It's like, you don't get paid that much.
Oh my God, nothing.
So you got to teach. And I was doing it while I was in physical therapy school to make money. And so I was picking up classes all the time, teaching as many as I could. Yeah. And I had the thought at the time, like, this is healthy for me. I am so active.
Yeah.
And it's like, is it healthy for you if it's causing you chronic pain?
Yes.
So,
gosh, oh my God. I definitely relate. Not on the pain side, although I got like injuries here and there.
Yeah,
For me,
that's
it
good.
was like my skin would break out. My periods would be all over the place. Like I didn't sleep well. And then I had this shift. It was actually like right before COVID where I was like, I want to lift. Like I kind of want to just like get into this more. I did Olympic weightlifting and I was like, this is cool, but I just want to like get into like some heavy lifts. And then I was like, oh, there's so much to this. Like when you pick up weight you've never had before, it's like, holy shit, I'm unstoppable.
Yes. Oh, it feels so empowering.
Yeah.
And I was like lifting all throughout my pregnancy. And I got to say, lifting a heavier weight than you've ever lifted before while you're pregnant is the coolest thing
I'm
ever.
sure.
I was like,
Yeah.
I am not only growing another human, but I'm lifting heavier today than I've ever lifted.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it is so, it's kind of addicting.
It is addicting.
Yeah.
And so for someone out there that's like, maybe working out a bunch or maybe wanting to get to the strength training level, but hasn't seen the results that we have or hasn't gotten to the place where you took a 2-week break and then jump back in, what else do you feel like we could give them that's like a more results driven to like want to get that addiction feeling of keep going?
Well, my whole mission is to educate because I'm someone that wants to know about the why. So I think when people understand the why, they're more likely to try something. So we could go a lot of different ways with this.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of pervasive myths. And these are myths that I tend to focus on because this is what I was kind of taught in my group as a group fitness instructor. And unfortunately, what I was teaching my participants was that a workout needs to make you super sweaty, needs to burn a lot of calories, needs to be at least an hour, needs to leave you like
Sore.
Sore, needs to leave you super
Exhausted.
sore. If you're not sore, did I actually do anything?
Yeah.
All of those things actually are not important when it comes to physiological change in your body. What's important for physiological change in your body is that you are training a muscle close to failure. You're lifting or choosing a challenging enough exercise that places enough mechanical tension on the muscle and thus is the stimulus for muscle growth. So if you burned a lot of calories doing that, maybe, cool, great. A lot of times strength training doesn't burn a lot of calories, but doesn't matter. That is not a part of the equation for physiological change of your body. We can also talk about myths around calorie burning, but same with soreness. Soreness sometimes happens from resistance training, sometimes it doesn't. Usually it happens when you are unfamiliar with an exercise, so if you do something new, or if you have an eccentric heavy component of the exercise, so a heavier lowering phase.
Right.
So those are the two things that typically cause soreness. So if those are not in your routine, but you still trained a muscle close to failure, that's the stimulus needed for muscle growth, even if you didn't get super sore.
Right.
So there's a lot of misconceptions that I think if people understood, they would be able to choose routines that are a lot higher bang for their buck and get them better results.
Yeah. You actually posted recently something that I thought was super interesting and a really cool visual was a barbell back squat and like a sissy squat and how they were super similar.
Yes.
And I think that's a great kind of lead into how you can utilize your own body weight or lower load and still get so much out of the exercises that you do. So can you just talk about that a little bit more?
Well, exercise is physics. So anytime you are moving a load, there will be certain amounts of force to the different muscles that are targeted in the exercise. So you can shift things and place more load upon certain muscles or others, depending on what your goal is for the exercise. So in the example you're talking about, I was, if you're doing a regular barbell back squat, for most people, it depends on their body proportions, the load to the knee and load to the quad is not as much as if you were to do something with your heels elevated. It's called a sissy squat. Your heels elevated, your knees are coming forward, your trunk is leaning back. And the reason for that is because there's a longer what's called moment arm to the knee. So there's more magnification to the quad. So because of that, you can use a lot less weight in a sissy squat and still get comparable load that you could in a back squat. I don't know if people are following, but I like to say simplify it all and just choose an exercise. If you can do that exercise for endless reps, it's not enough resistance.
Right.
Choose an exercise. If you can get close to failure in 30 reps or less, which is study shows the stimulus needed for muscle growth, then that's an effective exercise. So body weight exercises can be effective depending on the exercise, but they're not all effective. So for example, push-ups. a lot of women can't do more than 30 push-ups before they're close to failure. That is an effective stimulus for the upper body to grow. Pull-ups, same thing. Sissy squats, same thing. If you're talking about what's a body weight exercise that like
Pistol squat,
same thing.
high step up.
High step up. Oh, step ups. I love. I talk about step ups all the time because it's like they are so much load. Like if you just use your body weight
and slow it down.
And yes, or even just like a light dumbbell, like a 15-pound dumbbell can go a long way with a step up.
Yeah.
But there's some exercises think like body weight arm circles or putting like 1 pound wrist weight on your arms.
Yeah.
You could do that forever and ever and ever.
Right.
It's going to burn. It's going to feel challenging. You might even shake, but because the load is too light and you're not actually approaching muscular failure, it's not enough stimulus to drive muscle growth.
This is a great lean into Pilates and bar versus strength training. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I get so much hate on the internet for this. I want to say, first of all, not all Pilates and bar classes are created equal.
Fair.
There are some that can apply the principles of hypertrophy and therefore be effective for building muscle.
Right.
But a lot of times the reps are just too high. So, for example, again, we'll just use the example of the arm circles. Let's say you have 1 pound wrist weights and your arms are in a T and you're doing arm circles for like 3-4 minutes on end.
Yeah.
You are going to be dying by the end of that. It's going to feel hard. Your muscles are going to be burning. You might even have a little shake. You might really struggle to keep your arms lifted. But you didn't approach mechanical failure. And so it's not enough for muscle growth. So I think a lot of times these classes are filled with those types of exercises.
Right.
Or you're doing like bridges for like minutes and minutes on end.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with a bridge. Nothing wrong with these exercises. It's just if your goal is to physically change your body, you do need more load than that. Now, a lot of people's next question is, okay, well, if it's not building muscle, then what is it doing?
Yeah.
And I did a whole podcast about this today, but one of the benefits is endurance, muscular endurance. But it's not spot treating fat or building a significant amount of muscle. So people are like, well, then why should I do it? If you love it, do it. I always say like any form of movement that you enjoy, do it. But if your goal is to build muscle and that's your primary focus on the strength training workouts, and then anything else that you want to add into your routine, I say is bonus.
Right.
However, you do need to be cognizant of how those methods are affecting your recovery because you can get really sore from a workout like that. And we just talked about soreness isn't necessarily an indicator of an effective stimulus.
Right.
You can get really sore, and therefore, let's say you're going to a Pilates class on Sunday, and then you have to turn around and work legs on Monday. That's going to affect the exercises that you're doing in your lifting session if you're super sore from the day before. So I always like to just give people the information, and then they can do what they want with it.
What is the benefit of muscular endurance then?
I mean, okay, I did this podcast yesterday, and I'm not kidding. I was scouring the internet for like 15 hours, like the literature, and trying to figure out like what are the metabolic benefits, what are the like takeaways into your daily life.
Yeah.
From a metabolic standpoint, it is shown to improve mitochondrial density. It's either density or efficiency, but that mainly happens with untrained individuals. So if you're trained, like you are, or probably a lot of your listeners, it probably doesn't have a huge effect on your mitochondrial health, maybe some. And then from like just an everyday life standpoint, it might be able to help you, like if you have to carry groceries for a long period of time or carry a car seat for a long period of time or do something that requires you to hold a position for a long period of time, it might help you with that. But I always say that strength training also helps you with that.
Yeah.
So
great. That's such great information.
Yeah.
Where do you feel like then, let me take this into, what do you feel like outside of people wanting to do just Pilates or bar are some of the misconceptions that women have when it comes to strength training?
Well, I could say the bulky thing.
Yeah, let's go there.
I know. So I feel like I've talked about this so many times. Okay, so bulkiness. I think people are afraid to lift because they're afraid they're going to get bulky. If you are untrained and you're not lifting, visual muscle growth takes anywhere from like 8 to 12 weeks to detect, to be able to see. However, what happens in the first like month or so is that you might have some cell swelling. Especially if you're newer to resistance training, your muscles swell because there's inflammation there from the training. Inflammation gets a bad rap, but it's necessary while after training. So your muscles get a little swollen. Some people call that like a pump. And people think that, oh my gosh, after that first month and then they have a little swelling, I'm getting bulky, I need to stop. And it's probably just a little temporary cell swelling that's going to go away with more consistency. It's not that you've built a significant amount of muscle mass in that time. Now, another thing that will happen is if people let's say they go 3 months and they are noticing real muscle growth changes, but they feel bigger overall. A lot of times that's happening because they are either not losing fat or they're gaining fat on top of the muscle that they're building. So I always say that has to be more of your diet. If fat loss is your goal, focus more on your diet. But I think people might feel like that bigger feeling, and that is real and common. But again, I think it's more of a fat on top of muscle. It's not the muscle itself that's making you feel like bigger. If you want to get true muscle bulky, it's going to take years.
Yes. But it's interesting that you say that on that first month, because that's when I feel like a lot of people drop off because they're like, I'm getting puffy. I feel bigger. I feel like I'm gaining weight and more muscular. So like, what could we tell them that could maybe be like, yeah, keep going. That's working.
Totally. Well, step off the scale.
Yeah.
And number 2, it's interesting. I just read a study that said the pump or the swelling that you get after strength training is actually an indicator of the effectiveness of your routine. So if you are seeing a little bit of swelling, that means you're probably doing a routine that's going to be effective in the long run. But I do say that swelling tends to go down a little bit after a couple months of consistency. So keep pushing through, because once you build that muscle mass, your body composition changes. So you have an increase in lean mass compared to the fat mass that you have. Even if you don't even lose any fat mass, you now have an increased proportion of lean mass to fat mass. If you want to body recomposition, which means losing fat and gaining muscle at the same time, then pairing diet with that. So if someone's like, I don't like the way I look, number 1, just give it another month or 2. I guarantee you the swelling will go down a little bit, but also focus on your diet.
Yeah. Is that something that you focus on? Because you said that your body did change a lot when you got into.
Yeah, I do. So when I first got into lifting not exclusively, I do cardio as well. But when I changed my routine from the over-exercise, I started to feel a lot better, but I was not eating, I was overeating. I was eating in a calorie surplus, and therefore I wasn't losing fat. And so I was building muscle, but it maybe wasn't as like noticeable because I also didn't lose the fat. When I changed my diet, I started eating more protein, and I was focused on being at more my calorie maintenance overall. And I started tracking my food because I'd never tracked my food before. So I had no idea where I was at. And what I found was that I was eating about half the amount of protein that I should have been eating. And so I was like, no wonder I'm not gaining muscle faster. And then no wonder I'm not losing fat. So I changed my diet. I try to eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And then in general, I don't track anymore because I feel like I tracked for a long time. So I feel like I just understand now. Like I just kind of have a feeling now.
Yeah.
And I can kind of quickly do it in my head. But I try to eat around my maintenance calories and high protein.
How important is protein for someone that does want to body recomp or change at all?
It's essential.
Yeah.
It's essential. If you don't have it, you won't build the muscle. And the recommendations from registered dietitians are 0.75 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'd be interested to hear what you think, but I find I have to be on the closer to that 1 gram than the 0.75 grams. I find that if I eat more protein, I really do see better results on that higher end. What do you find?
I feel fueled longer. I feel satisfied. I feel recovered better when I get closer to 1 pound per 1 gram. However, like yourself, a lot of women out there aren't getting anywhere near as close to what that goal is. So for example, I'm around 150 pounds. Like a lot of my clients would be at that like 75, 80. I would say something like, let's get let's do for the next 2 weeks, let's just add 10 more grams a day.
Yes.
Then we'll
love
add
that.
another 10 grams, and then we'll kind of slowly get into it, because if we're talking about puffiness, like that's the easiest way to bloat and feel really puffy when you're just go from 0 to 100. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So do you think the bloat and the puffiness also has to do with protein?
Yeah. Also, it feels like they're kind of just like, you know, that feeling when you're on your period and you're just like, oh, I feel so big right now.
Yes.
That's how I feel like
Yes.
protein or just overeating in general can feel. But I think if you go that route, there can be like where you're just doubling the amount of protein, you can feel just like this very heaviness feeling.
Yeah. Okay. It's been so long since I like increased my protein substantially, so I don't remember that happening to me. But
It didn't?
I thought I felt
Yeah.
really good. I think I was like, oh, this is everything.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I mean, I always like to like slow it up, but actually this can lead into the creatine, because I'm sure I've seen you talk about it, and it's obviously a trendy thing right now, but also the most studied supplement on the market, and something I take daily. But a lot of women will be like, I feel bloated or I feel puffy on it. Like, do I need to cycle? What do I need to do? So can you just kind of briefly talk about your experience and about it?
I don't know that I have noticed puffiness with creatine, but I do know that that's a thing.
Yeah.
And I've heard that it just increases cell swelling. I also have heard that certain types of creatine do it more than others.
Yes.
So this is not my area of expertise, so y'all will have to fact check me, but I've been taking Just Ingredients. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they have a creatine, and I really like her creatine.
Oh, that's what it's called, Just Ingredients?
Her brand is called Just
Oh,
Ingredients.
I haven't heard of that.
And she's very cognizant of the ingredients that go into every single thing that she makes. And I had her on my podcast actually, and she was talking about creatine and how there can be a byproduct created when you're creating. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Yeah. And just the way it's actually studied and who it's actually approved by is interesting too. Yeah.
So I think you need to get one that you like trust.
Yeah.
Which one do you take?
Creatine monohydrate from Legion. It's just like, I mean, you can also get it like anything that's just creatine monohydrate without any of the flavoring and stuff in it, like is probably really the best way to go.
Yeah.
And you can mix it with anything. You can have it. It also tastes like nothing.
It tastes like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just put it in water and it's like I'm drinking.
But there's a lot of other ones out there that are easier to take. But again, look at the ingredients, like creatine gummies. That's an easy one to just take every day. But you got to it is a gummy. So there's going to be some sugar in it.
You got to look at that. Yeah. But I do think it's effective. Like I do think that I have noticed, I think I build muscle easier when I'm taking creatine.
Yeah. So outside of the protein, not eating enough, do you feel like there's any other misconceptions that women feel in the strength training world, or what we can...
Well, I think one thing that I see often on Instagram is people have like a couple sets of weights and that's it. Like they'll have a 5-pound set and then they'll have like a 10-pound set.
Yeah.
And they're lifting weights, but they maybe aren't lifting appropriately for each lift.
Yeah.
I think that's a really common one, especially coming from group fitness. I mean, with group fitness, a lot of times you're like, everyone in the class will get like the same weights.
Yeah.
And it's like, everyone's going to need different weights, number one. And number two, a 10-pound weight might be appropriate for a lateral raise, but it might not be appropriate for a lunge variation.
Right.
So you need different, I always say, invest in a stack of dumbbells at least.
Yeah.
And that way you can have different different amounts of resistance for each lift. That's something that I see a lot. What do you see?
That for sure. My question to that was going to be, how do people know how much weight to lift though? Or how do they know when they are hitting that like muscle to failure or like feeling... Yeah.
I think that this is another common misconception is people think it burns. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm shaking. I've been seeing this all over Instagram lately, like people doing reformer classes and they're shaking. And so they think it's like really effective. Well, if you're not approaching, you can burn and shake all day long, but if you're not approaching muscular failure, it's not enough stimulus for muscle growth. I feel like I've said that like 20 times at this point, but let's talk about what that, let's talk about what that actually is.
Yeah.
So momentary muscular failure is when you cannot complete another rep despite your best efforts. You would need someone to help you up through the rep, or you just can't do it at all by yourself without any assistance. Studies show that you don't have to get all the way to muscle failure, but you do need to get close. You need to get like a few reps shy of muscle failure. So what that feels like, the best, most reliable indicator to know that you're close is that you have a decrease in rep speed or decrease in velocity.
Love that.
So your final rep should be pretty dang slow and pretty hard. Like you feel like you're trying to lift the weight quickly, but you just can't because you have a sufficient amount of mechanical tension to the muscle. That is the stimulus required. So a lot of people will be like, this really burns. Ooh, I'm really tired. I'm shaking. I'm fatiguing, but my rep speed hasn't decreased. Mm-hmm. So they're not close enough to failure. So they need to lift heavier or do more reps to get there.
I love that. Just one little thing that I like to add in here is I love to add rep ranges.
Yeah.
So that people can kind of find that like happy medium of like, what is it? And so if I'm always hitting the top end of my range, that means that it's too light. If I'm always at the bottom, maybe I went a little too heavy.
Yeah. That's a really good way to put it. It's like, yeah.
But I think like some people are actually just really scared to fail.
Yeah. I think, well, a lot of people don't know their failure point. Because they're afraid of hurting themselves.
Exactly.
Which it is a valid concern. I think once you've been training for a certain amount of time and you understand the movement patterns and you kind of trust your own body, it's easier to get there. But I do think it does, you're probably right. It probably takes some time to be able to get close to muscle failure. If someone is scared, I think choosing exercises that are simpler and trying to get all the way to failure in a more simple exercise, like a bicep curl. It's pretty, I don't want to say it's risk-free. Nothing is risk-free. But doing a bicep curl and getting close to failure, it's probably fairly hard to hurt yourself doing that.
Yeah.
Especially if you've been training for a while and you understand, you've got good stability and body awareness and things like that.
Right.
With more complicated movements, like lunge or squat variations, it might be a little trickier for people to get all the way to failure if they don't have someone there spotting them.
Yeah.
So I think that is one of those things that just kind of works. Like you just kind of have to work up to it.
Yeah.
And be patient.
Yeah. I think that's a hard thing, especially for my clients. They'll be like, I don't know exactly what that feels like, but I almost want you to like fake a fail. So I'll have people fake fails on barbell back squats all the time, just so they can feel how it feels to have, 5 or 10 pounds on the bar to just like drop it on the safety bars and be like, I know I can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have like a bail plan.
It's like just to have it there. But I still do feel like people are just like super nervous of this getting hurt thing. But 80% of the time, don't fact check me on that. Most people are getting hurt outside the gym than inside the gym.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so true. I think that's a really good idea to have a bail plan.
Yeah.
Like, because you can go there, you can have a bail plan with any exercise.
Yeah.
Like just in your head, you're like, okay, if I get stuck at the bottom, here's what I'm going to do.
Right.
Just I'm gonna safely get out of this, and even practicing it with body weight. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah. And anything like any movement, especially with the barbell, I teach a lot of barbells. I don't know if you do in your program.
Mainly dumbbells, just because it's at home program.
Okay, cool. But mine is like, bench press. I'm like, always ask the spotter. And people are like, oh, I'm scared to ask someone. And I'm like, go to the coffee shop, ask someone for a pen or something, and then practice there so you can practice at the gym.
Oh, that's
right?
so cute.
It's all like different ways that you can just make sure that you feel really comfortable, because that's all it is.
Yeah, totally. And people at the gym are so open to spotting you.
Yeah,
like,
they're also so welcoming.
I know.
But they seem intimidating because it's like, it's an iron-filled gym, but like we're very lovable.
I honestly have had really good experiences with like interactions at the gym. I feel like people are just like, they're nice. They're there trying to benefit themselves. And if they see you trying to benefit yourself too, like it's kind of like you have a commonality with one another. And yeah.
So you're talking about getting to muscle failures, like when you really see those results. Do you need to be at that level for every exercise, every week? Or like, how can we kind of help people understand what that should actually feel like on a week-to-week basis?
I do recommend it for every exercise, every week. If you get all the way to failure in every single exercise, you're probably going to feel pretty destroyed after that. So I like to say you don't have to get all the way to failure, but get close. And sometimes you might accidentally just get to failure, and instead of like a few reps shy of failure. That happens to me all the time. But it might feel like it's harder to recover from if you get to failure on every single exercise every single week.
Right.
So I like to say just get a couple reps shy in every lift, just to keep it simple.
Okay.
However, again, if you feel like you're not recovered, or if you're sick, or if you're like, I'm just trying to get by today. It's okay if you don't always get close to failure. Like, just stay consistent. I always say gentle consistency always wins.
Yeah.
So show up, be gentle for yourself if you need to, get it done, get in, get out. But yeah, I do recommend most lifts. Is that what you say? What do you say?
I'm a compound lift kind of first.
Yeah.
And then maybe not necessarily as much in the isolation exercise. And I personally like to program it more of like a 4 or 5 week plan where maybe you start a little bit lighter and kind of gradually get used to the movements and lift heavier each week.
I love that. Yeah.
But I do say that at least 1 or 2 of the exercises in every workout you do should be freaking hard.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. But I love your gentle consistency too. I've been seeing it all over your feed too.
Thank you. Yeah. We love it. It's how I live my life.
So if you get to a point now, say I'm in this for a few months at a time and I'm like, I've gotten to this level where I feel pretty good. And how do I know that to like keep challenging myself when I'm always hitting that top level or top weight each week?
I think people probably have like a physiological maximum, but I think it's a lot higher than what we realize.
Yeah.
I tend to think just do your best each week, and you're inevitably going to have weeks that are worse than others.
Yeah.
And I just tend to keep it really simple like that. Like, I just do a linear progression instead of like other like more traditional periodization, like it sounds like you do, which I think is awesome. I just kind of just do it linearly and just say, keep showing up.
Okay.
Keep trying to do better, keep trying to build muscle, because for most women, we're nowhere near our physiological max, like I said. So I think that we still, I'm currently on a journey to build 5 pounds of muscle because I lost some muscle after having a baby.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I kind of want to make it 10. Like, I kind of want to just like keep going. So does that answer your question?
What are you doing to get those 5 pounds? 5 or 10 pounds of muscle right now?
Nutrition and strength training are my primary, that's the cornerstone for me.
Yeah.
So high protein, and then strength training. I lift 5 days a week, and then I take 2 active recovery days where I just like walk or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I just started adding a little bit of HIIT. I'm easing into that. So I do like a little bit of sprint work each week, like very, very minimal.
Is that just for fun, or is that
that's
like
just
a
for
part
like
of
VO2
this?
max and like cardiovascular health? Not really. That isn't with the goal of building muscle. That's like a separate, just like fitness in general goal.
What is your length of time for this 5 to 10 pounds of muscle?
I gave myself a year.
Oh, amazing. God, I love that.
Yeah. I was like, I think I'm going to do it a lot sooner than a year.
Yeah.
Because I've already gained a couple pounds, and I just started this a couple months ago. So, but they do say that when you build muscle and you lose it, you gain it back a lot faster the second time because of myonuclei in the muscle, like muscle memory,
right?
Which is really cool and really nice and comforting, because if you're like, oh, I don't have to put in the work, as not that I'm not working hard, but it comes back faster the second time if you do go through a season of life where you lose it.
This is like a prime example of like the opposite of if you don't use it, you lose it, because it's still actually there. You know, like your body still remembers what it used to do pre-baby, right?
It's so comforting. And that's why, and cardiovascular health does not work in the same way, that, to my knowledge. Cardiovascular health is extremely important, obviously, but I always say it's more easy come, easy go than muscle. Muscle is harder to gain, but it's harder to lose. And then once you build it once and just invest in that one time, it's so much easier to build in subsequent moments or chapters of your life, which I just think is so cool.
I love that. How are you tracking your changes right now with your body?
I'm getting a DEXA scan.
Okay.
There's Body Spec. Have you heard of it?
I have one in a few weeks, actually.
Oh, you do? Oh, cool.
I do one maybe like once a year just to kind of see where my body's at.
Yeah.
It's been the same for so long, to be honest with you. Like, I haven't had a kid, so I haven't had these big changes. But it's just nice to be like, oh, yeah, like what I'm doing is still working. But yeah, can you tell the audience about Body Spec or like DEXA scans?
I think you always you kind of know where you are.
Yeah.
Like before you go into it, like you know where you are.
Yep.
But DEXA scans are kind of the most reliable way to measure your muscle mass, so your lean mass and your fat mass.
Yeah.
I'm not as focused on the fat. I'm more focused on the muscle.
Right.
But I get one. I'll probably get one like once a quarter right now.
Okay.
And I got one, and then I got one right when I stopped breastfeeding, and I had lost like about 5 pounds of muscle in over like 5 months of postpartum.
Okay.
And then a month later, I had gained like 1.7 pounds of muscle back already. So I haven't gotten another one. I'll probably just wait a few more months and see where I'm at in a couple more months. But Body Spec is in a lot of the major cities, and it's pretty cheap, right? It's like $40 a scan or something like that.
Yeah, and if you get them, like if you have a goal in mind like yours, you can get them like once a quarter, and it's like a package deal where if you get a couple at once, it's a little bit lower. But I think that DEXA scan, I don't know if you've heard of this before, but when I lived in Denver, we did the float tank, or God, I forgot what it was actually called, but it was just like a thing of water.
Yeah.
And it was a scale. So I've done body fat tests. Have you done that before?
What is that called?
I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's literally like a hot tub on wheels.
Yeah. I think that might actually be, what is that called? Oh my gosh, it's going to bother me.
The website is called bodyfattesting.com.
Okay.
And it's literally a tub where you go underwater and you have to blow out all the air that you can. And that's supposed to be like one of the most accurate ones too.
Yeah.
But I just like couldn't find an Austin. And then I was like, DEXA is just so widely known.
Yeah.
But I think it is important if you do have these kind of goals like Shannon does here. If like you want to gain muscle or lose fat, it's like having those numbers are so much more valuable than just stepping on a normal scale.
Yeah. Because the scale hasn't changed for me. So
yes. Yeah. And a lot of people too, like I have gained a lot of muscle in the past like 5 years since I've really switched into strength training as well. And my number on the scale is almost the exact same number.
Wow.
It looks so different in photos. You're like, oh no, you've definitely gained weight. And I'm like, actually, no.
That's crazy. It was just body recomposition.
Yes. Yeah. I've been 147 pounds for years. And it's like, that's kind of just how it has been. But that's why I believe that DEXA scans or body fat testing is actually really valuable to have.
It is. But unfortunately, I think it's not always accessible.
Agree.
Like, depending on where you live.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm like, how can I help people track their progress if they don't have one available, or if it's just like too expensive?
Right.
Because they're not always cheap. If you can get a hold of one. So I don't know. I haven't figured out like a good way. I'm honestly just like, if you're getting stronger in the gym, and just look with your eyeballs.
Yeah.
You know, like if you see visual muscle, then you're seeing progress.
Yeah, I mean, like so much of what I do, and I'm sure you put out online, is like, do you feel better walking up the stairs? Do you feel stronger? Can you carry all of your groceries? Like, can you get up off the floor? Like, those are all huge progress levels, right? But
totally.
Sometimes people like numbers and data, so there's that option too. Yeah. So as far as like tracking progress goes, I personally come from binge eating disorder a little bit. So I never really steered down to like the tracking of the food. But do you feel like that's a really important thing to track if you are trying to see these muscle and body recomposition?
I think for me, it really was.
Yeah.
Because I just did not understand the macronutrient content of food.
Right.
How much protein is in a chicken breast? Oh, I didn't know. How much protein is in Greek yogurt, or how much protein is in this or that? So I think for me, it was really important to start tracking so that I could just see where I was. And if you are someone who maybe you're like the tracking freaks you out a little bit, I always tell people like try it without. And just, maybe look up a couple of the foods that you're eating and just be like, okay, I know that a chicken breast, like an 8-ounce chicken breast is, how much is an 8-ounce chicken? 30
8
grams?
ounces is a lot. No.
8 ounces is a lot. I know.
It's usually like 4
ounces
30,
is
35.
35 or something like that. Just look up a lot of the foods that you're eating and just track in your head and just be like, okay, that was 35. That was another 30. That was another 30.
Yeah.
And then if you're not seeing the results that you want, I do recommend tracking.
Yeah.
At least that's how I think you can get the most precise with it, because I think you can learn a lot.
Yeah. No, I agree. I totally agree with you. I think also like just having that awareness too, right? So you can feel more comfortable if you're eating out or if you're at a party or something, you're like, oh, I actually measured this a couple weeks ago and it was about the size of my palm, was this much protein. Cool. I know that that's what I'm getting with the meal, right?
That's a great way to do it, is the palm size of protein.
Yeah. Did you use something like a MyFitnessPal or like a?
I used MyFitnessPal for a long time. Works great. And then I also have been using Chronometer, which the reason I switched to it was because I was interested in my micronutrients when I was pregnant.
Right.
And I've just kept with that. So it's kind of cool. It shows you the micronutrients as well as the macronutrients.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool if you're into that.
How important are micronutrients? Or do you not want to go down that route?
So I can speak to my own personal experience.
Yeah.
I feel like when I am looking at my micronutrients and when I'm focused on things like omega-3s and fiber and, different vitamins, and I'm hitting those targets, I feel amazing. I really do feel so much more mentally clear, energetic. I feel a physical difference when I am kind of hitting. And Chronometer is cool because it gives you targets. Like it says, like, you're this percentage away from your target. Now, how accurate is that?
Yeah.
I don't know, because we're all so different. But I mean, it's a good ballpark to just be like, I'm going to try to hit this much fiber or vitamin C or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Getting that stuff from your food. So yeah, I think I do see a big difference.
Yeah. And as always, I'm sure we both can say this, like, do what works best for you, of course. Like, I mean, sometimes I'll give clients, I'll be like, yeah, let's try this and that might not work. And then we'll try this and that might not work. Sometimes it takes like 15 different things for you to trial and error for you to be like, oh, this is the one I'm going to stick with because this is what I enjoy.
Yes. And I cannot tell you how many times I've done that for myself.
Yeah.
And I do that in business all the time too. It's like everything in life, if you want any result, I think it all boils down to this.
Yeah.
Applying the scientific method, having a hypothesis, an educated hypothesis, testing it, seeing if it worked or not. If it didn't work, go back to the beginning. Test something else.
I love that.
See if it worked. If it didn't work, go back to the beginning. And I think a lot of people get frustrated and they're like, nothing works. And it's like, you just haven't tried enough things. Like, you just need to keep trying. And it's okay if you fail. It's a learning experience.
Yeah.
So I apply that to business, fitness, everything. And it's so effective.
What if people have tried strength training so many times and it doesn't work? They have no desire, no interest in doing it. I know it's a hard one.
It is a hard one. I think you have to think about, why do you not like it?
Yeah.
Like, do you think people don't see results, or they just maybe don't enjoy it?
I think they really, truly don't enjoy it, which to people like us, I'm like, how could you not love this shit? It feels so good.
I know.
But there are people I really do think that just don't enjoy it.
Okay. You're going to be surprised. I think I'm one of those people.
But you're not.
I know. I've taught myself to love it, but when it's taken a long time for me, because I honestly, if I knew that more Pilates and bar methods and yoga did build a significant amount of muscle, that would be the type of exercise that I would gravitate towards. It just has always felt better in my body. I think it's because I'm naturally just better at it.
Yeah.
So it feels, I probably have a high composition of type 1 muscle fibers, which is the endurance fibers. I've never been a super powerful athlete. So strength training has just always been really hard for me. It's always just felt hard. No, and it still feels hard, but now I enjoy it, and it's fun once you start to see progress.
Yeah.
But there's so many different lifting methods. Your method is different than my method.
Right.
So someone could try my method and hate it and love your method, and it all can be effective. That's what's really cool, is there's so many different ways for it to be effective, as long as it's applying. Are you getting close to failure?
Yeah.
In under 30 reps? Are you eating enough protein? Are you recovering enough? Are you, targeting each muscle? All of those things are important.
Yeah.
So I say just keep trying things.
Yeah.
Until you find something you like.
I love that too, because like you said, even ours are so different, but there's also so many other fitness
Yeah.
and strength training programs out there. But it's so funny that you say that, because when you walked in, I was like, oh yeah, she does Pilates for sure. I know that
That's
but
what
I know that you strength train too as well. But like for me, Pilates is like miserable because it's so long, and I just like don't want to sit somewhere. But I was a sprinter. I can lift
you probably
400-pound
got the type
deadlift.
2.
Like I
Yes.
I have a lot more power, but like you have that like
Right. And I think I can speak to those that feel similarly to me, where they're
Totally.
like, I can rock a Pilates class.
Yes.
Like I can rock a yoga class. And that's how I've always felt. And I think people look at like, this is something I get on social media a lot. And if somebody's watching the video, maybe they can see, but people are like, well, you don't have any muscle. Like, what are you to talk about this? And I'm like, but for me, for my frame, I have been able to build muscle.
Yeah.
It's taken time. But for me and my frame, I tend to be, it's hard for me to build muscle, but I know the importance of it.
Yeah.
And I know that like, I'm not genetically gifted to be able to build a bunch of muscle like in a short period of time, but I know the importance of it. So I think I can speak to those that are like, that hate strength training.
yeah.
Because I mean, nothing has changed my body like strength training though.
But it's so funny that you say that, because then I get the opposite comments where it's like, you have too much muscle, or you're too bulky, or like, I don't want to look like a man. Like,
We can't win.
It's
We
like,
can't win.
there is no happy medium. So like, trust me when I say that, like, I know you're strong and have muscle, but your muscle could look way different than mine.
Yeah.
Because we're totally different bodies.
And that's what people need to know.
Exactly.
Someone's not going to do my strength training program and look like me.
Yes.
Someone's not going to do your strength training program and look like you. You are going to put on muscle how your body puts on muscle, and it's going to maybe take longer or shorter. But I think that that's important because, some people might look at me and be like, oh, she does Pilates. Like, and I'm like, I love Pilates. I want to be able to do it, but I just know it's not enough mechanical load, most methods.
When I first saw you, I thought, she looks like she's good at Pilates. Not that you only do Pilates.
Yes, got it.
People wouldn't look at me and be like, oh yeah, you look like you do Pilates, because I don't.
Well, you got amazing, beautiful muscle, which I'm like always so envious of. I'm like, oh, I wish I could. But again, you got to work with what you got.
Of course. And we talk a lot about aesthetics. So let's lean into how important muscle is just for women, perimenopause, like all ages. Like, what are these like massive benefits, aesthetics aside? Because obviously that's a huge aspect of why people want to get into fitness. But like, really, when you push that away and lean into some of these other things, that stuff will really come.
Yes, exactly.
So
I love that you said that. And that's okay if that's someone's reason for getting into
course.
it. I think that's great.
100%.
But a lot of times the reason you stay in it is because you're like, oh, this is it.
Yeah.
Like people are like, this is the secret.
Yeah.
Once they finally get into it. So metabolic health would be the first thing that comes to mind for me. Second, and not just as important as the first, is longevity is the second thing that comes to mind. So when we think of metabolic health, I think of insulin sensitivity. And insulin is a hormone that everybody's probably hearing about, but it is an important hormone because it touches every single cell in our body. Not all hormones affect all cells, but insulin does. So insulin is a really important hormone to have regulated in your body. And we can be more or less insulin sensitive. The more insulin sensitive, the better everything in our body operates in general.
Yeah.
And muscle can help improve insulin sensitivity. And I always talk about it like this. So when we eat, the carbs from our food break down into sugar and circulate throughout our bloodstream and either go to certain cells to power our processes of our body, like help us digest food or help us move around or whatever it is. Wherever that sugar is needed in the moment, it goes there. Anything left over is either stored as fat or it's stored in the muscle or in the liver. Well, you can't increase the size of your liver, but you can increase the size of your muscle. So when you have more muscle mass, there's more available sites for that glucose to be stored in and less in your blood sugar. And this affects your blood sugar regulation and therefore your insulin sensitivity. When blood sugar is up, insulin is up. When blood sugar is down, insulin goes down. So we want to regulate our blood sugar so that we can have lower insulin levels overall, which improves our insulin sensitivity. So if you think about muscle as a metabolic organ and improving our body from the inside out, improving our insulin sensitivity, that has all sorts of cascading effects. It helps not only with your longevity and reduce the risk of chronic disease, it helps you feel better feel more energetic, feel less brain fog. It helps it helps regulate hunger hormones, things like that. So improving your insulin sensitivity by building muscle. I mean, that's not the only way to improve your insulin sensitivity, but it is a great way to improve your insulin sensitivity.
Yeah, I love that. And what was the second thing you said?
Oh, longevity.
Yeah.
Which kind of plays hand in hand with improving your metabolic health through muscle, but longevity. So aside from the metabolic benefits that have, long-lasting effects in your body and help you reduce the risk of chronic disease and live longer and all of those things, we're losing muscle like we kind of talked about. It's called sarcopenia, and it sets in around the age of 30. That's why a lot of people will be like in their 30s and they're like, I'm eating and my lifestyle's the same as it was when I was in my 20s, but I feel like my body composition's changed. It's like, well, you probably lost a little bit of muscle.
Right.
Even if you weigh the same. So not to go back on the aesthetic thing, but I think that sometimes helps people like
Totally
understand. So we're losing muscle as we hit the age of 30, and then it starts to accelerate in our later years. And the beautiful thing about the human body is that we're very plastic. We can always be changing. We can always be improving no matter what your age is. But the reality is that it gets harder as you age to build muscle. So if you can build it earlier, you set yourself up for, even if you do lose a little as you age, at least you're losing it from a really strong foundation.
Yeah.
And it's not as difficult to build, or it is more difficult to build when you're older, but building it sooner will help you with your longevity.
Yeah.
I feel like I was rambling for a long time.
No, that was great. It's also really nice because I feel like I don't know exactly how old you are, but I feel like we're similar in the sense of like.
I'm 32.
I'm 35. So
Okay.
we were both in this like, let's work out so hard and crush ourselves. And then we're like, oh, wait, you don't have to do that. You can work out less. I could feel better. I look better. I have better sex. I have better energy. Like
Right?
like so many things got better, and like the like HIIT training just like kind of got pushed aside, and I was
Yes.
like, oh, I get it now.
Yes. And
Yeah.
isn't it amazing? Like there are some days
Yeah.
that I work out and I'm like, I don't even need to wash my hair.
I
'Cause I'm like, I didn't even really sweat.
I know.
Sometimes I sweat a
Same.
lot.
It's like lower body day, of course.
Lower
Upper
body
body, not bad.
No,
Yeah.
no, exactly. Not every workout I sweat. So it's like, it's kind of nice. And yeah, you feel like you're killing yourself less.
Yeah.
You're less sore. You're less broken down. Like I remember feeling like it was a badge of honor to be like, I am so sore. I can't move. And it was like every week.
I know. Yeah.
And I don't miss that.
But we're in this place right now where we can like, share our experience of like changing our lifestyle and how we worked out. And I think a lot of the women our age are kind of like, gearing more towards that way, which is really cool.
So.
Really
hope
cool.
so.
And hopefully as we get into our 40s, 50s, like we'll have just like a huge, all the women will be on the same page with us.
I think so. And I'm excited to see how our generation deals with menopause.
I agree.
I think it's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of women our age that don't have this education yet. And I'm like, that's who I want to reach and help.
Of course. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing our thing.
Exactly.
All right. We are towards the end, and I want to do some last rapid fire questions with you. Okay, Here we go. So how much protein? We kind of already went with this, but let's give this like a quickest answer we can.
Okay.
How much protein does someone need to be efficient at building muscle every day?
0.75 to 1 gram per pound.
Love it.
Of ideal body weight.
What is your favorite high protein snack?
Cottage cheese with Greek yogurt and berries.
Cottage cheese, Greek yogurt.
Sorry. Cottage cheese with protein powder and berries.
Love it. Okay, yeah. You know what? I was on a cottage cheese. This is supposed to be rapid fire. I was on a cottage cheesecake for a while, and people are like, cottage cheese is disgusting. But like, if you put some other stuff in it, it's actually not that bad.
I like it.
And honestly, Greek yogurt is good in anything. I don't care what people say. Like, yeah.
Greek yogurt and cottage cheese you can interchange.
What is your go-to supplement for muscle and why?
Creatine.
Yeah.
Builds muscle, helps with energy, all the things.
What is one small habit someone can do to improve their daily life or their fitness journey? Let me rephrase that. What is one small habit someone can do to improve their fitness journey?
I think apply gentle consistency. Don't think it needs to be so aggressive and extreme. Just get started. Even if it's 10 minutes, just get started.
Where did you come up with that gentle consistency?
My husband came up with it, actually. He
I
was
love
like,
that.
because we were talking about why he does my workouts, and he's like, why is this so effective? And I'm like, it's because you're consistent. And he's like, because I'm not getting injured all the time.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not injured, so I can stay consistent. It's gentle enough so that I could just keep coming back. So we
Yeah.
came up with it.
Did you trademark that?
I did trademark
That's
it.
amazing. I love that.
Because I'm like, it's just so, I really resonate with it. I think a lot of our community does too. So.
Totally. Well, gosh, thank you so much. This was such an awesome
This is so
conversation.
fun.
Yeah, I so appreciate your time, and I hope to see you on here soon.
Yay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Amazing.